Today we're talking about a movie. It's called Southbound. You can pick it up on either Hulu, and I also saw it located over on Tubi right now. It's also for rent over on Amazon Prime. It's actually a film that has five segments from different directors, Senthil. So if you were to look at these segments, you would say that each one of them has a title, even though they are not titled through the film. This film is basically taking five stories that are different stories and creating a web, basically a circular story that your beginning comes back to the end, which I thought was interesting. But so Roxanne Benjamin is did Siren. You have Matt Alpin, which is The Way In, The Way Out, and David Bruckner, which is The Accident. And there were a couple of other directors here, but I'm going to focus on that. Senthil, so I'd like to get your first, when you first saw this film, what was your first reactions?
Nowadays, whenever I'm looking at a movie, and I know, especially because our focus is to look at small budget movies and see what they did, that was the first thing I looked for. Does this feel like a small budget movie? This is not a micro budget movie, but this is definitely a low budget movie. And it didn't feel like a low budget movie to me because I felt that the actors were really good. They're all, for the large part, unknowns that haven't been in a lot of movies. But I thought they did a fantastic job. So the performance is really sold for me. And I like the fact that all of this is an anthology movie. And I like the fact that all the stories tied together and one effectively led to another. So there's some relationship among all the stories. The few monsters they used in the movie was really effective. What was confusing for me is that I didn't really know what to make of what the movie was about. What was your reaction to this guy?
So Senthil, like you, if you had taken each one of these movies or short stories and made it like an ABC of Death or VHS, and each one had a ending and beginning, I think I would have enjoyed this film a lot more than trying to figure out how it all tied together, right? Because they all flowed into one after another after another. Now, what I will say is, as I was watching it on Hulu, there were commercial breaks between each one of the storylines.
I see.
So it kind of faded to black and it goes, and then you start over again and you're in a storyline. So I knew when a storyline was changing. The challenge for me, Senthil, in this movie was I got lost during it because I was trying to watch it, even though I knew that it was five interlocking, movies or short stories. I was trying to find how they all connected because they didn't. It's not like they ended like ABC of Death and then it went to the next one. These all flowed one after the other after the other. Now, when you get to the ending, you see where the beginning and the ending connected, but I couldn't figure out how the rest of the middle connected with the rest of the story. I just was lost. And I think that took away, to me, what that film would have done if I'd better understand how they were interconnected.
I saw that there were one story would flow into another. For example, I think it was the third one where the character who hits the girl in the car.
My favorite segments.
What about it did you really like?
So I think what I liked about that film was how far are you willing to go to, I mean, here's somebody who's out on a desert road, right? They're talking with their wife on a mobile phone, hits a lady that's out in the middle of nowhere, right? And now where she comes from is from a story that we've just come through, right? That's the connecting piece. She comes into play and he hits her. He's desperate to save her. And he knows that what he's done is wrong. He didn't run away. So, I mean, I will tell you, I thought that this movie was going to go, this story was going to go a different direction because I thought that he would get in his car and he'd run and she'd come back or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Or those creatures that we see at the beginning would get their vengeance on him. No, he actually tries to save her, but he's talking to people on the phone that are sadistic, but you never find out who these people on the phone are.
Yeah, not only that, but first of all, I like that aspect of it because I also expected him to just abandon her and leave. So it was a little bit different, especially in a horror movie, that he did the right thing or tried to. and tried to help her, try to save her. But those voices on the phone, they were never explained because they knew a lot more about what was going on and who he was
Yes.
than they should have. And so they never explained how or why. And then the transition into the next small movie where you see the person he's been talking to is on a payphone outside of a bar. I don't understand that. Why was she on a payphone, and how in the world is she even talking to him through a payphone? So those
Well, and
transitions.
multiple voices, because it was like different. There was two
Yes.
different women and a guy on the
Yeah.
phone.
There's a doctor on at one point, and the doctor
Yeah.
knows a lot more than he should. So those kind of unexplained moments in the middle, I thought was a problem, because I kept looking like you did for the overall meaning. How are these all connected together? What does it mean? Is there some larger element of it? For example, those creatures, they show up in almost every story, but they don't kill everybody. Why?
Correct.
Why do they only target some people and not everybody else? It wasn't explained.
Because I think so. Reagan got to watch this with me as well. This is another one that Reagan watched with me, and both of us believe it's purgatory. So what's happened is that once the event happens, they are drug into purgatory, and these are the watchers. They're the guards. And if you try to escape purgatory, which is what happens in the first one where it attacks the guy, right? Yeah. They kill him. Basically, these creatures kill him. And my thinking is what you're seeing is that every one of these characters has done a wrong, and we are seeing their punishment, right? So his punishment is to be locked in this hospital with this girl forever, right? He's just, and living with it in the end. I don't want to give it away what he's done to her, right? By listening to this crazed woman on the phone. And to me, once Reagan kind of said, look, I think this is what that is, I went, you know what, that's a pretty good analysis. Maybe that's exactly what this is.
Yeah, I think that she may be onto something. And I thought maybe even a little step further with the term Southbound and the ground falling out from underneath.
Yes.
In one of the scenes, I thought, oh, maybe this is hell. Where one guy finds, I think, what turns out to be his sister. And they're trying to escape, or at least he's trying to get her out of there in a car. And she keeps saying, I can't leave, you can't leave, I can't be with you. And we'll go into how that ends up. But that made it clear that we are not in normal Earth at that point. There's definitely something odd about where they were all at, whether that's purgatory, hell. I think Reagan may be onto something that's probably purgatory, and that's why they're not allowed to leave and can't leave, and why those watchers don't kill everybody.
Right. I think they're the guards. And the other thing that Reagan brought up was, if you notice, when they're driving down the road, it just says a highway and there's no number on the sign. Yeah. So it's nowhere. It's a road to nowhere. It's purgatory. And each one of these, stories is about their fate and what they, the wrongs that they did that led them to being watched by these watchers.
That's another good observation, because as he's trying to help that woman that he hit, he cannot find any road signs. He can't find anything that tells him where he's at, so that he can tell the EMTs. It's clearly very vague and blank from that perspective. What about this from a small movie perspective did you take out of this, and what can we leverage from what we saw here in our own movies, Scott?
So what I'm going to say right off the bat with this is, I thought the script was well written.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of banter that didn't fit within the storyline. That was one thing, right? So I was watching that very closely. I actually enjoyed the dialogue back and forth. It was minimal dialogue, but everything they said had a punch and had meaning. The other thing I really liked about this Synthel was, again, if we were ever to go and do another film after the one that we're looking at doing, they were able to use a lot of different locations really well.
Yeah.
And it was dark, it was gritty. There was no real, I don't know if you noticed this, but at the beginning when they're driving, even the sun looked gritty as they're driving. Everything had this very an undertone of filth is kind of the best way I can get to it. It was creepy on many levels. So for depending upon, again, this is another one of these, I question whether or not it really is, fits into our usual, portfolio
Yeah.
of micro budget, right? Because you and I, again, we try to stay in that $1 million or less realm. Southbound felt like it was more. And if it was less than $1 million, I want to talk to at least one of these directors and figure out how they pulled this off and how they got their actors to do as well as they did.
That is an excellent observation. This did not feel in any way, shape, or form, the cinematography, the quality of the direction, the performances, the lighting, even the music that they use. None of this felt like a small budget, micro budget movie.
No.
If it is under $1 million, I'd love to know how they pulled it off, because it was convincingly high production value.
Yeah. And again, to me, it was the way that they built grittiness into the entire film. It just felt the entire time I'm watching it like they were filming this through like dirty lenses.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that feel because it added to the tone of this film, which was, if you're going to watch this film, be ready. It's a dark, I wouldn't say there's tons of violence in this film. There are some scenes that are disturbing, but more from the aspect of, you run over somebody and they don't hide the gruesomeness of what that means. But it's disturbing because you just don't really know where the hell it's going.
The elements of it also that didn't feel a small budget is the hospital scene where he's trying to help her and he's got his hands inside her body. The very last film where there's a home invasion and there's quite a bit of violence there. That also seemed more than a small budget, low budget movie. I definitely recommend this. It's very tight. The dialogue is minimal. It flows really well. It's very crisp. There's nothing unnecessary anywhere in there. I think the problems for me is, I kept looking for an overarching connection between all stories, and there really isn't, except for maybe the first and the last. So that threw me off a little bit. But yeah, love this. Love to talk to anybody from the movie and see how much money they spent and what if they achieved out of it what they were hoping to.
That I feel the same way, Synthel. All right, I'm looking forward to our next film, and I will talk to you later.
Absolutely. See you next time.